Greetings. Thank you all for coming out today. We just want to thank our special guest, Ashriel Moore, all the way over in Dimona, Israel. We want to thank this brother for being here today and giving us the conversation. Um, First and foremost, we want to start off with a quick prayer, just to give thanks to God for having this moment. This is a wonderful moment. This is like a extraordinary event from, just the perspective of history. We weren't allowed to do anything like this before, let alone 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 100 years ago. We weren't allowed to even fathom what we were doing today. So if you can for me, everybody bow your heads. In the name of the Most High God, whom all praise is due, Lord of the worlds and hereafter, we bear witness that there is only one God. Thank you for this day that you have given us, that we get to be present with you. Allow us to continue to learn, grow into the mind of Christ. Allow us to continue to love each other as one, continue to build bonds and strengthen our bonds overseas. We ask that you pray and watch over Ashriel Moore and his baby, his newborn. We ask that you watch over all those who are in this call, that we may continue to glorify you and continue to do your works. It is in our Messiah, Yeshua's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All righty. Let's go ahead and get started, brother. I'm going to ask about 5 to 6 questions, then I'll turn it over to the panelists, the participants, and see who wants to ask a question as well. But I have some deep questions I want to get off to you, brother.
Well, that's what we're here for, my brother. So we all open for it, and I'm sure that the conversation is going to be great. And I want to thank you again for inviting me here, and for those people who had the chance to log in with us. Thank you all as well for being with us this morning.
Perfect. So without further ado, the first question is going to be basically about your life. Who are you, Ashrael? What's your journey? You can start off with yourself and then maybe expand upon the history of the village and how you guys ended up going over there.
Well, first, Chris, I want to give all thanks and honor to the God of our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and to all of those who are striving for righteousness and for peace and for justice worldwide. It's in their names that I come in perfect peace. I don't really talk too much about myself because there's a saying that you are just as great as your people are, and so I'm just another vessel that have been used in the struggle to be able to continue to represent our people on this end while having the chance to connect to our people worldwide. And so I was born into a community here in Israel, which is called the Village of Peace, the African Hebrew Israelite community, that is the largest concentration of African Americans outside of America, any place in the world. It's the largest vegan community anywhere in the world. And it's the most self sufficient community of African people worldwide who are looking to take our own destiny into our own hands. And so I was born into this community after my leaders migrated to Israel in 1968. And I like to kind of give a little background about that journey so that we can be able to see it in 3 different ways: in the geopolitical way, in the historical way, but also in the prophetic way. Because all of these things have, a bearing on how did we arrive to where we are today. Because everybody that speak about this region, they're always looking at it from a geopolitical perspective, and that's what takes you all off. Because if you're looking at it geopolitically, then the geopolitics don't really give it a proper understanding in terms of the unfolding of everything that has happened up until this very moment. And so our story don't actually start just from 1968 and our arrival coming to Israel, but we, according to our historical research, according to our anthropology, according to our biblical references, and according to the migration patterns, we are of the lost tribes of Israel, who had migrated from Israel starting all the way in 721 BC with the no, it wasn't the Babylonians. First, it was the Assyrians.
It was the Syrians.
721, it was the Assyrians.
Mhm.
And then 586 was the Babylonian takeover of Israel. But now our people had started migrating way beforehand to
Yep.
North Africa, because there's always been migration of people to different places, to different regions, because
Yep.
of famine and because of other things. And so they did find refuge in North Africa all the way up until approximately 635 AD, where the Arabs came and conquered the entire region. And so one of the reasons why they needed to flee was because they were persecuted. And so they were looking for, a way out. And so that way out came on the west coast of Africa. A lot of them arrived to the western coast of Africa and actually set up camp near the Niger River. And in
Yep.
the entire area of the Senegambia and Benin and Togo and Nigeria and all of these places is where they actually found refuge, all the way up until approximately 1442, where we had the beginning of the Portuguese coming in and acting like they were our friends. And
Yep.
so we found out quick that they weren't our friends once they actually began the transatlantic slave trade. And so the slave trade didn't actually start by them coming into Africa and picking us off one by one, but they actually had deals with the locals, the local chiefs, the local clans, the local tribes, who allowed them then to be able to capture some of these people who they knew were foreigners or prisoners of war, and then sell them to the Europeans in exchange for rum and gunpowder and a lot of other things. And so that's how we arrived to the shores of North America, of South America, of the Isles of the Caribbean, and our people continue to hold on to a lot of those Hebraic aspects. So you would hear in the songs that they sang about beyond the Jordan River and Jerusalem and Canaan's land and swing low, swing chariot, sweet
Um,
chariot coming forward to carry me home. But
yes,
so if
sir.
they were talking about coming forward to carry me home, coming forward to carry me back to where?
Exactly.
So they knew where they came from. And you still had a lot of those tribes who are still today maintaining a lot of those Hebraic traits on the western coast of Africa. So when you look at Nigeria, you know that approximately 30% of those people who were taken from the Biafra in Nigeria, they were actually of the Igbo tribe. And they
Yep.
continue to hold on to a lot of those Hebraic traits up until today. You have the Yoruba, you have the Ashanti, you
The
have the
London.
Ewe, you have the Ga, you have the Lemba in South Africa. You have
Mhm.
all of these communities. You have the Beta Israel in Ethiopia. All of these
Yep.
communities, they maintain a lot of those Hebraic traits. And so when we arrived to the Western Hemisphere, those things didn't leave us, right?
Mhm.
Even though we were not allowed to read and to write and to pray and to maintain our traditions outwardly, we still maintained a lot of those things inwardly. And so in the 1960s, when there was, the renaissance of our people that was saying anywhere is better than here. But in the 1920s, you had Brother Marcus Garvey, who was talking about a Back to Africa movement. In the 1930s, 1940s, you had the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that has started rising. And in the 1950s, 1960s, you had a lot of the organizations like SNCC and like CORE and like the NAACP and like the Black Panthers and
Yep.
all of these people were talking about. It has to be a better solution than what we experience in here in Israel. I mean,
Yep.
here in America. And so
Yep.
during that exact period of time, that was the impetus to allow us then to start looking back to Israel as a real geographical location. Because prior to the establishment of the state of Israel in 1948, Israel didn't really exist for us as a real geographical location. We sang about it, we talked about it, we prayed about it, we hymned about it, we hoped to return there. But if you asked our people, where is this place on the map, nobody could actually point to it. And so in 1948, once the state was established, that then led to our people having a vision to be able to see Israel now as a real geographical location and to start working in order to return to our ancestral homeland where we had been taken from so long ago. And so we started making that move.
If you don't mind me stopping right there, brother, I also want to shout out the Israelite founders, such as like Whitworth Matthews, those who came forth in the early 1900s, right after the Garvey movement, basically reinserting this idea that, yeah, we are Israelites, we are descendants of the ancient Hebrews, and we're going to return to our birthright. It's kind of a birthright in a sense.
Yes,
And
sir.
even at the law of passage today, which is like, I guess we'll go into this next, until we'll segue into this, just to basically it's a birthright, and having the state of Israel, which is based off birthright citizenship or the right of return, and having that for certain people and not all people who want to return and make that spiritual connection back to where we used to be. Talk to us a little bit about that. How is that going? How's that process going? Is it getting draining, or is it something that you continue to fight for because you know what the purpose, the legacy is?
So I'm connect that right into, because you preempt me. Great minds think alike, so you already know where I was going with it.
Yep.
But once we arrived to Israel in 1968, we were the first people of sub-Saharan African descent who would arrive to Israel and said that we are part of the lost tribes of Israel. Because prior to that, in the five aliyot, or the five migrations, the five waves of migration started in 1882 coming to Israel, they were mostly Europeans, and you had a bit of North Africans, and you had a bit of those people who came from the Arab countries. But you didn't really have nobody of the sub-Saharan African identity. So when we arrived and we said that we are part of that house of Israel, they didn't really know how to relate to that, because they had never heard that before. And so initially we were received under the law of return, saying that all people who have some affinity and connection to the house of Israel are able to return and to reestablish themselves in the state of Israel. But then when they changed the law in 1970, they said that we have to give a definition for how we understand a Jew to be. And what they understood a Jew to be was someone who was born to a Jewish mother, or someone who converted and did not hold on to a different religion. But now, one thing about the Israelites is that we know that our ancestry and our lineage is not through our mother, but it's through our father, through the seed of our father. And
Abraham,
so
Isaac, and Jacob. Go ahead.
Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob begot such and such. I mean, that's just how it goes in the scripture. So we said this is what we are subscribing to. That caused an issue both religiously and politically. And so from that point, 1971, we then had all of our citizenship revoked, and we went into a political fight with the state of Israel, because they didn't want to recognize us as being legitimate owners of that birthright that you're talking about. And so it's been a fight. It's been an issue, because when we're talking about the Israelites who had migrated to the four corners of the earth, we're not talking about it in a religious sense. We're talking about it in a ethnic, cultural sense.
Mhm.
And so even if a lot of our people don't hold on to a lot of the religious aspects, that still doesn't take away from our identity ethnically as people who are part and parcel of this land. And so there has been an issue for us ever since the 1970s, but now we're kind of coming back around to it, with them wanting to deport some of our people out of Israel. But then now we're starting to give them a better image of what an Israelite is, based on our traditions, our history, our anthropology, our ethnicity, and it has nothing to do with religion. And so that's just kind of segueing into your first question, that it has been, a fight, because when we're talking about birthright, some people are looking at it from a religious perspective.
Yep.
We are looking at it from an ethnic connecting
Mhm.
perspective. So those are two very separate things. And
Mhm.
so anyone who can become a Jew, if you convert to Judaism, but not anybody can be an Israelite,
Yep.
because you can attain a citizenship in a place, but it doesn't make you then ethnically that. I'm not a Chinese. I can attain Chinese citizenship probably, but that still doesn't make me a Chinese then. And so
Yep.
that's what we're trying to explain to them. And so that's an issue, because when people are looking at things from two different perspectives, it's hard for you to be able to then get in alignment with what it is that we're trying to attain. And so that's where our issues then lie at the moment.
So that segues into the whole theme of this conversation. It's like, where do we go from here? Do we continue to fight this battle in the courts? Because I know you guys are fighting it in the courts right now. Do we continue to go that route, or do we maybe? I don't want to say how do you explain this? Do we go somewhere else? Do we establish our Zion, our peace? Do we establish our land somewhere else? I know the Ethiopians around, I believe, 1100 and maybe 1100 during their one of their dynasties. They had the Solomonic dynasty established their second, what they called it, Jerusalem. They called it their Jerusalem down there in Ethiopia. So what do you see us going from here, brother? Do you see this battle being waged for the next 50 years? Do you see this being something that is victory in sight, or what do you see this going, brother?
Well, one thing about the land of Israel is that it actually sits in the center of the earth. And there's a spiritual element in this place that no political establishment can determine how and who is able to come here. And so we didn't come here following nobody's dictates in regards to the state being established, and now they're welcoming us here. We came following the God of Israel. That's what led us back to Israel. And so the same way the God of Israel brought us here, the God of Israel will also keep us here. Now we understand also that we have to continue to, put one step forward so that our God can be able to give the next two steps, right? We don't live in an illusion that we could just sit still and don't do nothing and the battle will be won for us. We have to also do something. And so, no, we're not going to go anywhere else and establish ourselves anywhere else. We came to Israel in order to establish ourselves in Israel. And we managed to do so even in spite of the difficulty. We managed to establish a community that is based on principles that you don't see in a lot of other places in the world. And so when you have 2,000, 3,000 people living in a communal state according to principles of love, of equality, of justice, of peace, of harmony, of family, all of these people living in accordance with those principles, then it makes sense for somebody to understand now why we don't have to have any locks on the doors, or why we have never experienced a drive-by shootout, or why we don't see, the abuse of drugs and alcohol, or why we don't see domestic abuse, or why we don't see. It makes sense then for us to be able to live according to those principles, and not then to be experiencing or exposed to a lot of things that a lot of people outside the community are not exposed to. And so this was perfect, what we did. It was perfect for its time, and it's still perfect until this very day. There are some political issues and challenges that we have to overcome, but there are political issues and challenges that our people experience all over the world. And so are we going to tell our people that they need to just get up from wherever they are and come back to the continent? Well, they come back to the continent, and they also have political issues on the continent as well. So what, they need to leave the continent and go where? Right? So wherever we are, we should be able to understand then how to be able to fight the good fight in that place that we're in, so that we can be able to actually move forward towards the goal that we have in mind, but to operate in a strategic way that we can be able to then become successful with what we're doing. We don't fight just for the sake of fighting. We fight for the sake of winning. And so we lay out a foundation for how we're going to fight and what we're going to do and how we're going to accomplish what we're going to accomplish. So we see that we're getting closer and closer to the mark. We started off where none of our people had any legal status, but now we're at a point where almost everybody have legal status, and there are a few people who are left behind that we are still fighting for them. And I can tell you right now, Chris, and you can mark my word, brother, in a couple months, I'm going to be getting back on here with you and telling you we won that fight as well. Because
I'm looking forward to it, brother.
It's coming. It's coming because, and I'm going to turn it back over to you, but one thing about what we've done in Israel that a lot of people actually acknowledge and appreciate is the fact that with almost no help internally, we managed to build a prosperous community, a vibrant community that has then caused people to come up and to want to acknowledge, first of all, the greatness of what we've been, and to understand how do we manage to do so. So that's why Mother Winnie Mandela came up to Israel to visit us. And that's why Whitney Houston and Bobby Brown came up to visit us. And that's why Stevie Wonder came up to visit us. And that's why Mari came up to visit us. And that's why Blair Underwood and a lot of other people came up to visit us, because they wanted to understand how did some Black Americans, that they said that we were nothing, we were 3/5 of a human being, we were coons, we were shines, we were perpetual slaves, managed to break out and to come back to our ancestral homeland and to establish ourselves in our ancestral homeland and to build a community that's based on these type of principles and without any help from the outside. People just couldn't fathom that. But we did it because we're following the footsteps of our God as it has been laid out for us.
So let's rewind a little bit. I know we jumped right off into the deep end, into like what's the issues, the ongoing battles. But tell us a little bit more about the village. I mean, like you said, I'm gonna paraphrase scripture right here. It says the law will go forth from Zion. So basically it says from where you guys are at, from Dimona. Let's put into perspective today. From Dimona, the law will go forth and everybody will copy what your community design is, the way you guys live, the way you guys eat, the way you guys operate. So just tell us a little bit more about how you guys do that. How are you vegan? How do you keep these things going? How did you be self-sufficient? How did you build for yourself? Just tell us a little bit about that. Was it all pressure or was it faith or what was it?
So what we understood right off the bat when we arrived to Israel, and they didn't want to allow us access to a lot of the institutions here in Israel, we understood that then we have to rely on ourselves only. And so, in that self-reliance, we had to put ourselves on a path where we wouldn't need to use any external institutions because we didn't have access to them. And so, for example, we understood that there's no reason for us to 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 get sick and to go to their health institutions because they're not going to take care of us. We don't have the health care and we don't have legal status in Israel, so they're not going to give us assistance. So what we had to do is think outside of the box, bro. And so what we did was we realized, okay, well, there's a diet that will allow us to be able to live in harmony with the way that our body has been calibrated. And how has it been calibrated to be able to consume things from the herbs of the ground and the fruits and the vegetables and all other things that grow. And so we understood that later on that 10 out of 10 of the chronic ailments that our people experience in America and worldwide are a direct result of the consumption of meat, dairy, eggs, fish, chicken, and otherwise. And so when we started consuming a full vegan diet, that allowed us then to be able to eradicate a lot of those diseases. We then, said, okay, not only eating is enough, we also need to make sure that our temple, which is our body, is healthy and is strong. And so we need to do some type of exercise up about 3-4 times a week to be able to make sure that we sweat and we let a lot of those toxins out of our body. Well, that's not enough either. We need to also decrease the consumption of our salt because we understand that the salt has a negative effect. Too much salt has a negative effect on the body. And so we decrease the consumption of salt by having no salt days. That means that every other day of the week, we don't consume any salt. But we said we'll go a step further. We need to also implement one massage a month for every member of the community. Every member of the community needs to get a massage at least once a month. Well, that wasn't enough. We said that we need to now see how we can strengthen our bodies and the seasons change. So we then started consuming garlic and olive oil and other things to be able to strengthen our our systems to be able to go into the other seasons and not contract a lot of those colds and those flus. And then we said, okay, that's in that aspect. Now let's move over then into the family aspect. We understand that all of these people can't just live together if there's no harmony. And so what do we do then? We see each other as brother and sister. And so if I see you as my brother, then your children now are like my nieces and nephews. And your father and your mother are like my father and my mother. And so now there's a newfound respect for each member of the community internally. And so what we did also is we're not going to just stop there by having respect for each other. We're going to also implement holy days that will be able to allow us the ability to also be able to show that outwardly. So we implemented what is called Elders Day, that once a month, once a year in November, we have an entire week that we dedicate to the elders. Right. We implemented also what is called the Day of Appreciation, where there's an entire week that we are then showing appreciation for our fellow neighbors. So you exchange gifts and you are admonished to invite people over for dinner once a week, usually on Fridays. You're admonished then to get closer to families that you haven't really had a lot of communication with. These things are part and parcel of our community. Then we didn't stop there. We said we also need to have full control over the education of our children.
So
And
question,
so,
you
yes,
guys
sir.
celebrate Black History Month over there?
Well, look, we're part of Black history.
Hey,
So
yeah.
absolutely.
Wow.
That's something that but for us, Black History Month is all year long.
Yes, sir.
We're always implementing these things and pumping it into the children and into the community so that we can be able to attain that pride of being, who we are. Because when you look in Israel, there's not a lot of people who look like us here. See, in
Yeah.
America, you have a lot of people. You have approximately 45 million
Black
people of
American.
African ancestry in
Yeah.
America. But you don't have that here in Israel. Out of 10 million people, you maybe have about 500,000, which is probably a fifth of the people here in Israel. And so we are we got really. You don't look around and see a lot of people who look like us, who act like us, who carry themselves like us. And so we have to, implement Black History Month 2.0 all year long, always doing something. So we won't forget, because living in a society that don't really care about Black History Month at all, then you could actually get lost.
Yep.
And and your identity could be taken away from you. So when we established the school, we said that there were some principles that we're going to live according to in that school as well. So first thing in the morning before we start school, we're going to pray. Right? We're going to pray, and we're going to recite the 10 commandments, and then we're going to start our day off in school. Right? Before we do anything else. Then that's not enough. Now let's go over to the other institutions. We said, all right, we want to also establish institutions that will be self-sufficient for us. So what we'll do now is that we'll take the model of the community and all the things that I'm sharing with you right now, and we're going to replicate these things in other places in the world. And so then we went down to Atlanta and we did it. Then we went to Chicago and we did it. Then we went to DC and we did it. Then we went to New York and we did it. Then we went to Houston and we did it. Then we went to the continent and we did it. We took the model of what we built here, took those institutions, took that idea, implemented those things in other places in the world that will allow our people then to have access to these things, although you're not here in Israel. So when you say that the law should go forth from Zion, then that means that whatever has been established here, we're not just keeping it to ourselves. We understand that this model is a working model. So we then open it up for our people to be able to experience it as well. And if this is something that could be able to help you to eradicate a lot of the things that our people are experiencing wherever they are in the world, to bring us closer, to help us to be more reliant on ourselves, then let me give you, the game on this. This is how we managed to do this for 50 years. Look, you take it and let's see if we can be able to establish something with these principles. You may need to tweak it a little bit so that it can be adjustable for the community or for the place that you're living in. But nonetheless, these principles are principles that work. And last thing, we said that we're going to deliver our own babies naturally. So we established an institution called the House of Life, where 1,000 children were born naturally from 1974 up until today, 2025.
And can you explain more for people who don't know, of men like myself, what is a natural birth?
A natural birth is a birth without epidural. Is actually a more healthier birth. The mortality rate is actually lower. And it also allows for the sisters to be able to have more control over their bodies when they're going through this process of delivering that baby. And then after you deliver that baby, we then have a setup where the sisters, when you deliver a girl, you have about 80 days of rest, right? Where all the community then pitch in to assist you and your family, whatever it is that you need and they need. And then if you deliver a boy, then you have 40 days of rest. And then the entire community pitches in and assists you and your family with whatever you need, but allows you to be able to just rest, connect with the baby, relax a little bit, get your mind straight before you get back out there, because delivering the baby into the world is not an easy thing.
So you're gonna have a lot of people who hear this interview, and it may be just a few right now on this call, but it's gonna be thousands and thousands of people watching this even into the future. So what do you say to those people, especially us Black Americans over here, who feel like we lost our hope, who feel like lots going on in our government? Mortality rate for our Black women in giving birth is very, very high. The communities are destroyed. What do you say to us? How can we return to you guys, or how can we establish maybe a second version of what you got going on? What do you say to us?
I say that you all are in the same state that we were in the 1960s, when things were probably a little worse than what they are today. And that's what actually caused us to understand, all right, this ain't gonna work. We have to go somewhere. First of all, we need to find a solution externally. Yeah. We can't be dependent on the internal institutions and the government that is the same government that enslaved us, that implemented Jim Crow, that has implemented mass incarceration today, that has taken away DEI at this moment in time. These people are not going to be the ones who are going to bring any salvation to us. And so long as we continue to be reliant on them, then we're going to remain in the same state that we're in right now. So in the 1960s, when we left, we said that we're leaving to establish a new reality for ourselves. That new reality can come in a bunch of different forms. That new reality can come in you establishing a community outside of Israel, outside of America. That new reality can come from you establishing communities inside of America. That new reality can come from you pulling out from the systems and you then creating an internal system that allows us to be able to depend on one another, and everyone brings whatever it is that they have to the table, and we then could be able to support one another. That also comes with us understanding that we didn't make it if one of us made it, unless all of us made it. And so now it's not about me trying to become a billionaire. It's me trying to become a billionaire so that you can become a billionaire. So I'm gonna put you on game so that when we both become billionaires, now we're gonna make some more billionaires, and we're gonna take that money and we're gonna do something with it. We're gonna put it behind some land and some stocks and some business developments, and we're gonna create a fabrication center where we can be able to teach our children some trades where they can be able to not have to go through 4 or 5 years of college, and then you come out of college and the only thing you have is student debt. But you don't really have the ability to jump into the real life of work with something tangible in your hands. This can come in a lot of different ways. And so I'm saying that usually when you're at your lowest point, that's when you are forced to think outside of the box. When you have exhausted all the options, all the other options, and you like, I don't have no place else to go now. That's usually when everything kick in, because now it's do or die. You don't have a lot of things to fall back on. And so when you don't have a lot of other options to fall back on, now it's going to force you to think outside of the box to be able to look at opportunities that were right there in your face, but you just didn't take advantage of it because you were comfortable when you woke up and went to the 9 to 5 job. But now you don't have a 9 to 5 job. Now you're going to establish a job for yourself. And when you're establishing a job for yourself, now you have to think outside the box of how you're going to now make this job that you've established profitable for you and for your family. So you don't have a lot of time to be playing around. You got to wake up and get to it every day. This is what forces us now to become men and women for real, right? Being babies and relying on somebody else to do something for us, that ain't gonna work for us. So now we have the opportunity because we feel like our backs are up against the wall. But look, let me tell you something. Our backs always been up against the wall, and that's why we always had the opportunity to be able to spring forth from that meek state that we were in. But only once we understand that this is the last result, that's when you really kick in. And I think that our brothers and sisters can and should and will kick in as soon as we understand that, look, they ain't got nothing for us. If we don't do for ourselves, we just ain't gonna get it. Ain't no time to be sitting around bickering and complaining and crying and being disappointed with somebody else. It's about what you can do and what you can't do. And I believe in us so much that we know that we are able to do whatever is necessary for us to be able to be prosperous.
So moving forward with that concept, let's finding a way to separate the divisions, to cut off the divisions. What do you say to us so we can stop the divisions and rally around the cause? What could we do? Is there beef, internal beef with you guys in the IUIC? How can we stop the divisions between us all that we may come together and into a oneness, not only with each other, but with God? I know we have Muslims. How can we come together, Ashriel? What's your plan? How do you see us coming together?
When we understand it's not about our philosophies and our ideologies, but it's about us rising as a nation of people, then we could be able to put all of the philosophies and the ideologies aside, and we just talk about what can we be able to do to be able to change the state of our people wherever they are. And it's not about Hebrew Israelites, and it's not about Christians, and it's not about the Nation of Islam. It's about us as people. Malcolm once said it in the most eloquent way. He said, "We don't catch hell because we're Muslim or because we're black. We catch hell because we're black." So ain't nobody really looking at us in terms of our ideological differences and saying, okay, we'll spare these people and we'll allow these people to be able to move up on the ladder. No, we're all in the same bucket. These ideologies, we weren't born with these ideologies. We were taught these things. And so the same way we were taught these things, we could also be taught how to be able to put these sticks together so that we can be able to create something that'll be prosperous for us. whatever your ideology is, whatever you believe in, however you see God um, manifesting himself in your life or in your community life, that's cool. That's good. Let's then take that manifestation of God in your life, in your community, and see how we can be able to then use that as leverage to be able to help our people wherever they are. When you're talking to a starving person, he don't care about your ideology. He don't care about what you. He cares about, do you have some food for me or not? Bottom line. And so that's what we have to do. We have to bring that daily bread to our people. Bottom line, full stop. Leave everything else aside for a moment. We'll have some time to be able to come together and do some spiritual game banging, because that's all it's about. We just coming together and repping our sets. Everybody's just talking about, this is my set, this is my community. What I'm saying? We have all of the knowledge, we have all of the wisdom, we have all the understanding. No. But unity don't mean that we all have to do the same thing at the same time and get the results. When you're looking at the systems of the body, you have 9 different systems and everyone is doing something else. Now, if one system starts to do what the other system is doing, now you're going to have a breakdown in the body. So long as everybody is able to remain in their lane and bring whatever it is that they're able to bring to the table, so that they can be that operating force in their area of expertise, and allow everybody else to also be operating force in their area of expertise, then we can be able to have a fully functioning body. So the body is out of attack right now because the brain is doing what the respiratory system is supposed to be doing. The blood vessels is doing what the heart is supposed to be doing. Everybody is cross-sectioning. Yep. Let everybody work in their field. Let everybody do what they're able to do. I don't care about your ideology. I don't care about your background. What I do care about is how dedicated are you to seeing our people rise and to creating an alternative to the life that our people are experiencing today, that'll be a sustainable one for us for generations going forward. That's all I care about right now. And so long as we can be able to bring these solutions that are sustainable solutions, that are practical solutions, that when anybody adopt those solutions, they could also be able to immediately start seeing results. That's all I'm interested in at the moment. Everything else, leave that out at the door, because you know why? Because that's not going to save us. If it was going to save us, then it would have saved us by now. Yep. But so long as it hadn't saved us, yeah, we'll talk about everything else. But let's talk about, first of all, how do we rise above the current condition of our people at the moment and provide a solution to our people that we can be able to start seeing everybody prosper, and then we'll get back to the game banging afterwards. If we have to.
We have to, like you said, yeah, great point right there. But I don't know how you could say it better. Before I ask you some more questions, I'm gonna open up the conversation to everybody else who's on the call. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask? I know we have a few different people on here. Anybody have any questions so far? Everybody's allowed to talk. If you just want to unmute your mic, you can go ahead and start speaking.
I don't have any questions, but I do just want to say thank you, Ashriel, again for coming and speaking to us. It's always a light, and the community and what you guys do is very admirable. So I just appreciate your presence. Thank you.
Greetings, I am Mia Dennis. So I think my question is more so, I'm not gonna lie, you guys answered a lot of questions just as they were coming. So one of the biggest questions I have is that, taking from a lot of the points you said, because you guys have done great work in establishing a community for us and by us in where you did. So in terms of how we can bring that concept not only to America itself, but even in our immediate communities, especially with the youth of today, I think politics is becoming more prevalent than ever. And more young people want to know how they can get involved with their community and how they can build almost a sanctuary for ourselves, because we're starting to realize that it's not for us. Although we created a lot of what is today, it still doesn't serve us the way that we need to.
So what was the question, Mia?
The question was more so, how can we bring those concepts over that you've already implemented to our community today?
So I would say, because I think that's something that I mentioned before, we had taken, the concepts, the foundation, the principles of how we built this community, and we replicated it in other places in the world. So how do we replicate it? First of all, we seek people who have a like mind, who are also interested in building an alternative to what we have at the moment. And once we seek those people, then we understand what is it that is most pressing for us at the moment. So if it's us being able to provide, I don't know, a healthy environment for our people, then how do we establish that environment? What places do we have that are available to allow us to be able to convene in? How often do we need to convene? And when we do convene, what is it we're coming together for? Are we coming together just to allow each and every one of us to have a sanctuary where we can be able to just, enjoy the brothers and the sisters? Are we coming together to talk about, the current state of affairs and to put some programs together about how we're going to now approach these situations? Are we coming together just to have some events and to allow people to feel like they're part of something and they're just not, another individual out in the world? And once we establish a place like that, now people become more invested in what it is that you're doing, because now they feel like they're part of something, and they can then be able to bring whatever abilities they have to the table and say, okay, I'm good in real estate, I'm good in banking, I'm good in such and such. How do we then take these tools, take these abilities, and leverage them for what it is that we need to do with our community? So if a person is good now in real estate and they understand how we can be able to take a few homes and flip them, well, now we have a community of 50 people who are coming together often, and we're talking about the necessity of us building a financial hub. Now we say, okay, well, how do we go about then getting whatever the finances is that is necessary so that we can be able to put down a down payment so that we could then establish our first home or our first building or our first institution. And once we start with one, we can be able to then, extend those things. That's number one. Number two is the importance of us being dedicated to what it is that we're talking about. Because ever so often we have people who talk a lot, and then when it's game time, they don't really show up to play. And so when you understand now that you're surrounded by people who are dedicated and who are serious about doing what we're talking about, then you don't have to follow through with them, because you already know that if Chris said that he was going to do something, then Chris is going to do it. Not waiting all the way into the 90th minute, and then fourth quarter, it's like, oh, well, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you that I won't be able to do so. So, each and every one of us now would have to have another level of responsibility to the group, to the community that we're establishing, to know that this is a serious business that we're talking about. And then number three, I would say, which is probably the most important, we have to leave our emotions out of it. Because when we come into these sessions and we're overly emotional and everybody feel like their way is the best way, and if it's not done in this way, that I'm not going to be a part of this community, or I'm not going to be a part of this movement if you don't accept my way of doing things or my thinking pattern, then we won't be able to make anything happen like that. So everybody would have to be neutral coming into it, understanding that you're not the smartest person in the world, and there is a space now for all of us to be able to learn from one another. And even if you may suggest something and it's not necessarily accepted, that don't mean that what you're suggesting is not a good idea. It means possibly that at the time it may not be the best idea, but still you stick with whatever the team has decided we're going to do all the way through. If that doesn't work, no problem. We can be able to, because what we built in Israel was through trial and error. We didn't arrive here and then everything just developed. We had some hard years. We had some hard years that people, a lot of people left the community because they just couldn't, stand the hardships. But then once we broke through, they say that, usually businesses, after 5 years, they fail. 90% of the businesses after 5 years, they fail. Now, if you can't stick through that 5 years and going forward, then most likely you won't be able to see the fruit of the labor. So if you only in to be able to see something happening by a snap of a finger, then most likely we won't be able to accomplish nothing like that. And so I would say then that part of the lessons that we learned are these things now that I'm sharing with you, that we can be able to take them, because they're things that are measurable. Right? They're measurable. You can be able to actually look at them and see and measure the accomplishments and measure, the progress and measure how we're moving. And then based on that measurement, you can then determine if we're on course or if we're all the way off. If we're off, we can be able to see where we went off and get back on course. If we're on course, then we know that we're going to be meeting that first milestone real soon. And then afterwards, we know that going from B to C will be much easier because now we know kind of the game plan and the blueprint. So I would say that those things, taking them into consideration, that's kind of a foundation for actually starting, first step.
All right. Brother Long Carlos, you want to go ahead and speak, brother? You can take yourself off mute.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Just to get some more understanding and just to see where you're coming from more, and your thinking, like as far as like African Americans, and not just African Americans, just I guess Africans across the world, you know what I'm saying? Whereas in Canada and the Caribbean and UK, is it like a part of your intent for us to kind of like migrate back to like Israel? Or is it like you just kind of want us to, how you were saying, like get that sanctuary, get that fellowship, like where we're at, and kind of change our mind and our kind of situation, our community, like in these places, you know what I'm saying? Like where was that? Where is it the States or like where whatever like Caribbean or Canada? Like I guess what's kind of like your goal per se?
I would say, Juwan, to jump off where you are. Wherever you are, you can be able to implement these principles right there. So you don't necessarily. I understand that most people are not going to migrate outside of the place that they're already in, right? Because you're already comfortable, you understand it a bit better, and most people don't get up and leave something totally unless you're absolutely dedicated to a move. But in reality, most people don't do that. And so, if you can be able to take these principles and establish them where you are, then your Jerusalem is right there where you are at the moment. You
Yep.
bring Jerusalem to you. You don't necessarily have to come, to this place. You can make this place where you are at the moment. So we just want to take the principles that we learned along the way so that we can be able to help you to be able to take that and establish a village of peace in Jamaica, a village of peace in Atlanta, a village of peace in Chicago, a village of peace in DC, a village of peace in London, a village of peace in Nigeria. So long as you can be able to use these principles wherever you are in the world, implement them. Let's see if they work. And then we can be able to then create a a web of villages of peace that are all dedicated to these same principles. And now we have an international line of connectivity that everybody is working in their own areas of expertise, in their own countries, within their own communities. But now we're able to have an international connectivity with people in a lot of other places that are thinking just like us. I mean, the Jews do it wherever they are in the world. The Chinese do it wherever they are in the world. The Indians do it wherever they are in the world. So the Arabs do it wherever they are in the world. So if they're able to do these same things wherever they are in the world, then we definitely are able to do these things wherever we are in the world. And let me just remind you of the fact that we are the majority in the world. So it's not a possibility that everybody is going to move to this small geographical location called Israel. But you can create in Israel, wherever you are in the world, by taking those same principles and seeing how it works by adjusting it to the place that you're actually in. So, Joanne, that's my goal.
Thank you for that, Ashriel. 56 years, man. That's 56 years. That's outstanding, brother. I can't even fathom that, Brother Ian, you want to go and speak? You can take yourself off mute.
Greetings. I am Ian Goodman. Today my question is, how has the village been able to keep up with like new technology trends? And
So,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. If you have a second one, let's hear that too.
Now, I was just gonna piggyback. Like, have you been able to implement things such as, or have a reason to implement things such as AI or things of that nature, like new tech trends?
So we have And that's funny that you're asking that right now, because we just had a meeting the other day about some of these things that we're looking to accomplish, that we're moving forward and using, using this new development. So, for example, you have the idea of a smart village, right? That you can be able to create, a village in 3D. And within that 3D village, you now able to see how you could implement a lot of the AI trends now into it to make it more sustainable. So, for example, right, you have people who are now building houses in the community, greenhouses in the community, but they're using it. They're doing that using AI models, right, for how we would like to, to put this thing together. They're not actually sitting down as architects and drawing it out, but they're using, this new technology to be able to establish those things. We're taking a lot of the things that we implemented in the community, and now we actually showing the processes from A to Z, where you can be able to then receive that in a small 30-second clip, and you can be able to understand how we manage to do certain things from A to Z by just looking at the clip. We're taking a lot of these technological developments and seeing how we could be able to make them relevant for the community and for where we are at the moment. So we're definitely looking into that, and it's always, we're always open for people to bring new ideas, fresh ideas, fresh developments that could be able to help us to be able to level up.
And this would be a side question right here. Brother Ian Goodman. Goodman is an Ashkenazi Jew last name. Um, how do you like? This is a personal question in terms of like getting more of us to go over there. How could we apply for citizenship? Is there like a way we could do that? I know like Ian Goodman, I'm pretty sure he has a high chance of being able to get that citizenship. For me, I have my mother's last name is Goodman as well. So is there any way that we could apply for citizenship? Is that still open? Is that because the legal battles, it may be a little difficult right now? What do you think?
It's not only difficult right now, it's difficult generally. Applying for citizenship in Israel, it's even by you having a last name, that's not even enough. I know people who actually converted to Judaism, but not through Orthodoxy, through conservative Judaism and through Reform Judaism, but they were not recognized by the internal rabbinate in Israel. And so as a result, they won't allow you to make Aliyah to Israel. So the process has become super duper rigorous, right? Where they almost would have you spitting out blood to be able to receive just legal status in Israel. A1 visas, to remain in Israel, to live in Israel, B1 visas to have permanent residency. So let alone citizenship. I was born and raised in Israel, and I only just attained citizenship a few years ago. So the process, if it was that easy, it'll be great. But they're very, very strict with the regulations, because they want to maintain a Jewish majority in Israel, but a Jewish majority that they can be able to confirm are Jewish according to their understanding, but not necessarily.
This ain't Orthodox only, like Orthodox Judaism only.
But for the most part, I mean, unless but you have a lot of people who are European Jews who they actually give a pass to, but they're not going to give you or me no pass as being people of African descent. That's just one of the things that we are actually fighting against, that racism and discrimination, based on skin color. But look, that's nothing new to us. We experience that everywhere in the world as people of African descent. So, it's just a fight that we have to experience on this end as well.
Appreciate you. Go ahead, Mike. If you want to go ahead, unmute yourself.
Most definitely. Greetings, Brother Ashriel, and thank you for your platform and your time today. My name is Naya Abreu. I am a third-year agricultural science major at Florida A&M. And today, I just wanted to kind of like, I'm just go forward for my question. So, as we establish and nurture these newfound communities, we have an opportunity to create spaces that are more just, more inclusive, and not only that, but more resilient than those that came before. However, history has shown us that systemic negativities like inequality, exclusion, and cycles of harm, like all the time or often find ways to persist, even in new environments. So, with that, how can we be intentional in identifying and dismantling these harmful patterns before they take root? So, I guess my question is, what proactive measures can we implement to ensure that history doesn't repeat itself and that these communities remain true to their founding values?
Appreciate you, Nat. That's a beautiful question. And I would say that one of the things that we learned throughout our journey is that we have to learn each other. And while we're learning each other, we also have to implement values for the foundation of the community that we don't compromise on. And so whoever is not interested in being fully dedicated to those values, then they just won't stick around. And so long as we don't bend these core values to be able to, or for the sake of trying to appease people, so that we can be able to grow the community in numbers, as opposed to the quality of the people who are actually joining onto the community to give assistance to develop what it is that we're looking to develop, that's where we go off. And so we understood that. But that came just later on down the line. There are always people who are trying to go for the ride. They're not really, not every, this is something that somebody told me one time. Not all skin folk are kinfolk. Not everybody who look like you, or who sound like you, or who seem to be dedicated to the same principles as you are actually that. So there is a vetting process that we would have to go through once we've established the foundation of what it is that we're looking to do. And we can't compromise on those things. And so long as we stay 10 toes down on what we said that we were going to do from the outset, and we don't change that for nobody, then everybody who joins is joining knowing that they have to then align themselves with the values and the principles that we've laid out. And so in the community, for example, in Israel, one of the core values is that no consumption of meat, dairy, eggs, fish, whatever. There is no negotiation about that. If you can't align yourself with that, then possibly you can be a friend of the community. You can assist probably from the outside, and we can assist you also. But as being part of the social structure and system that we've built, you can't be a part of that, because then you would start to tear away from the fabric of what it is that we have built our foundation on. And so long as we remain dedicated to those things, it's all good. But as soon as we start to move away from those core principles and kind of bend it over here a little bit so that we can be able to get a few more people joining, and bend it over here a little bit so we can be able to get a little more donations, and bend it over here a little bit so that we can be able to, allow probably for higher level people to come, and bend it over here a little bit, then that's when we know that there will never be a foundation as it was initially. Because when you bend it over here a little bit, then somebody's expecting you then to bend it over here a little bit. Because then they're going to ask, so Naya, why are these people allowed to, for example, not be vegans in the community? Because you're saying they're now joining onto the community, so you're going to give them, the benefit of the doubt to kind of slowly but surely get into it. But these people over here didn't have that same opportunity to do so. And you won't have an answer to that. So I would say to stay true to the founding values that we're building this community and this concept on, and to remain 10 toes down on those values. And then I guarantee you that everybody who this idea speaks to, they'll be willing then to adjust themselves so that they can become part of this social structure. We won't have to change the structure itself. The structure will remain, but people who are coming, who are not in alignment with that structure, they will be willing to then align themselves with that structure. So my idea is just that. Stay true to what we said in the beginning.
And I'll piggyback off that. Anything you build, you must be ready to defend. So I think if Naya was speaking more towards like the Tulsa bombings and stuff of that nature when we built communities here in America. Everything you build, you must be able to defend. And that's just the bottom line of that one. Going forward, brother, I know we've been on for about an hour now. I have some spiritual questions now. I want to get into like the word, you know.
Yes,
For this being prophecy, this like you guys returning to Israel being prophecy. What do you guys see yourself in the next 56 years in? What do you guys see yourself in the next 50 years? What does 100 years look like for Dimona Israel?
the first 50 years was coming. One of my mentors said to me that the first generation came, it was the responsibility of the second generation to remain, is the responsibility of the third generation to maintain, so that all the other generations could be able to sustain. And so we came, we established, we have maintained, and now it's going to be time for us to be able to sustain and to build outwardly now. The foundation is built, the home is built, so now we can be able to kind of start expanding, ourselves a bit further out. And so part of, that 50-year plan going forward is what we're discussing right here, Chris, that we get together and we talk about how we could then take these principles and implement them in other places, so that we then in 50 years from now could be able to see 50 different communities like this here in other places in the world, so that we can be able to now not only talk about the community in Israel as something that is out of the ordinary, because this will be kind of, a foundation for our people in a lot of other places. And this will become then the standard, not necessarily how we did it here, but we can be able to take it and adjust it for wherever it, is going to be replicated in the world. And so our idea looking forward is, now that we've established this model, this idea has to be one then that could be able to bring an alternative to the life that our people have been living up until now. And so we have to be able to see how this affects people's lives, how the model of being fully vegan, how many people can we then be able to eradicate a lot of sicknesses from their lives just by virtue of helping them to become vegan, or at the least vegetarian as a start. How many lives can we then save in places like Chicago, who we know have a high rate of murder? How do we get them to understand that now they're brothers and sisters, and then the murder rate goes down as it did here in Israel, with no murders, no rabbi shootouts, because now we see each other as family? How do we take these things? You mentioned, Chris, the idea of the fact that the mortality rate is so high. Well, what did we do to be able to bring the mortality rate down, in such way as we managed to do here in Israel? So 50 years going forward, we have to now be able to affect other people's lives with what we managed to do here. We did it here, we established it here, but that's not where it was supposed to stop at. Now we have to go and take these things to our people in the four corners of the earth, and be able to provide this as an alternative to the life that you're living now, so that you could know that there is a different way, there is a better way, there is a way that has been tried and proven, and these are the results that we bring in you the receipts. So when we're talking about what can and what can't be done, we're not talking about it because we believe what we're talking about. We're talking about it because we experience what we're talking about. And so if these experiences then say anything to you, then let's do it. So 50 years from now, we need to see some more communities. 50 years from now, we need to affect some more lives. 50 years from now, we have to be able to see how this model is then able to change the trajectory that our people are on in so many places in the world. So that's the idea. Take this, make it global. How did DJ Khaled say? We taking over one city out of city. We going global. That's the idea.
Man, that's a good one right there, brother. Thinking about your father, and Ben Israel, the founders of the community. What would you think they would say today? If they seen the community, they seen all that you guys have accomplished, they seen like the global state of the world. What would you think they would say today?
I think they said everything they was going to say while they were living, because they already saw, it don't take a lot when a plane just goes off, it can go off just a millimeter from its direction, and it's going to go to a different direction altogether. So they already saw the trajectory that the world was on. And that's why they tried to stress to us, so many things internally so that we can be able to look out for these things. They already knew where the world was going. They said it already. A lot of the things that are happening today, the global warming and the effect on the planet, and the LGBTQ communities, and how those things are playing in the environment of America, and mass incarceration, and they talked about these things because they all looked down. One thing that they did say was that we have to focus on the youth now. We have to focus on the youngsters, because the old heads are not going to get it.
Right.
They stuck in their ways.
Yep.
And ain't no sense of you even trying to change that, because
Yep.
you're not going to be able to change that. What they didn't change in 70 years, 60 years, 50 years, 80 years, they're not going to change it now. So we may as well focus our attention now on a demographic that is more open to change at the moment because of the experiences that they're having now. Because when they look around, they see that there's no hope almost. So those are the people that we need to be talking to, not the people who are like, oh, well, I ain't gonna be here for the next 10 years anyway, so hell, it don't matter to me. Those are not the people we need to be talking to. So I would say that the leaders would to tell us, to stay aligned with our purpose, stay focused on our mission and on our goals, because everything else around you is going to try and take you off course. But we have to stay aligned and stay. We have the keys already.
Yep.
We already know what we need to be doing. They
Even
left us. Huh?
Even having this moment and being on this call right now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yep.
These are the keys right here. So we don't need. We're not looking externally for nothing at the moment. It's all been embedded in us. It's just a matter of us now recognizing and realizing the greatness that we have in us, and now to start to live that. And so as soon as we start to live that, we can be able to see how that affects the lives around us. But most of us are not living in our purpose, because we don't even understand what are we even on earth for. All of us are really trying to figure things out, but most of us don't even know what we're supposed to be doing. And so when you don't understand what you're supposed to be doing, then in a case like that, you can't be doing nothing that's effective, because you just living. You're just trying to make it from day to day. So that's what we need to be changing now.
Yep. And I'll go forth and piggyback off what you're saying. It does talk about in prophecy in the end times, when we're about to gather and go back to the land, and so we'll be led by the youth. It says the youth will be taking charge. And although we have some old heads who are interested, and I'm pretty sure that this is a sidetrack. I'm pretty sure the link, there was something wrong with the link, that we had a few people who were trying to join who wasn't able to join today, but it's all in y'all's will. So the right people who are on today, they were on today. But the youth was on today. That's what I was trying to say. The old heads who were trying to get on couldn't make it on today. But yeah, brother, I really do appreciate you for having this conversation with us. This is just the first of many. This is just one day of 1,000 years. Let's just say that.
Yes, sir.
And we just continue to look forward to our work that we can do together. If you need anything from us, we have all the youth, all the minds that we need to carry us forward into the next generation, into that millennial kingdom that our Messiah talks about, prophesies. So
yes, sir.
Thank you again, brother Ashriel Moore. With that being said, we'll call this meeting adjourned. God bless you.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate you, and I appreciate everybody who's on this call with us, and all of those who are going to be listening later on. And I'm not one just to speak about what it is that we need to be doing and to talk about it. We learned that after you talk, then it's time to get to work. They said that when you prophesied that at 12 o'clock, the window is going to be shattered, then at 11:59 you have to make sure that you have the rock in your hand already. And so that's the kind of work that we pray like there's no work to be done, but then we work like we ain't got no time to be praying. So that's how that's how we live, and I'm sure that going forward we can be able to now start to build on this foundation. So thank you, Chris, for having me, and thank you for everybody who was here with us, and looking forward to what we're going to start building together.
Yes, sir. God bless you again. Everybody else, you can, head off.